if you're able to mute when not talking so that we can reduce the background noise. We would also ask for folks to use the chat and the raised hand function so that we can make sure to recognize everyone in speaking. And also for our commissioners, members of the public are present. For our members of the public, we would encourage you to utilize the chat function in order to share any thoughts that you may have. Also, as an awareness, the commission will be taking a vote today. So recognizing that we do have members of the public here with us, you are not able to vote during the vote. It should only be commissioners. So please keep that in mind as we're moving forward throughout our agenda today. So I was just going to ask Kelly if you can begin, recording. So if we can transition to the next slide, please. And the next one, please. So the agenda was sent out prior to the meeting. So hope that you all had an opportunity to review that. And I'm going to turn it over to Kelly for roll call, and if there are any additional introductions that need to be made. Kelly?
All right, thank you. I believe I have everyone, and I don't see anyone on the phone, so I'll continue to monitor participants, but just know that if you are on the call, I have you marked down as present.
And also, if we have any designees present, so please put that in the chat so that Kelly can ensure that representation from designees are noted.
Yeah, and Christina, quick note, if you have previously told me you're a designee, I have you marked down and I have you marked as present. So if you've already told me, I've got it. But if you are a new designee for a commission member, then please throw it in the chat and I will be sure to mark that down for today in future meetings.
Great, thank you so much, Kelly. So moving on to the approval of the minutes. Next slide, please. The April meeting minutes were sent in advance of the meeting and will need to be approved. I do want to note that there was one submitted amendment or addition to the meeting notes. The language was under the discussion for the vote on SAMHSA guidance on trauma-informed approaches, and the amended language is Commission's discussion of adopting SAMHSA principles included considering a shift from SAMHSA orientation to clinical providers to one that has an organizational perspective. So that was the only content or amendment to the minutes that were provided. So I just want to open it up for a motion for approval and discussion of the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes with the amendment.
Inga, I think you are talking, but I cannot hear you.
This is Frank Cross. I'll help Inga out. I'll move for approval of the minutes with the amendment.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Delisa Worthy. I second.
Thank you. And so are there any opposed to approval of the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes have been approved through unanimous consent. So moving on to our next agenda item and a large portion of our discussion today is a vote on the legislative report submission to the legislature. So per the law, the commission has to provide a report annually by June 30th to the governor and the legislature about the progress and the activities of the commission and all of the required tasks that are outlined in the bill. A draft of this report was sent out to the commission prior to the meeting for comments and feedback. I do want to note that there were some comments that were provided. They were just technical edits. There were no substantive changes, recommendations, or edits to the content. So as of close of business yesterday, there were no substantive changes proposed to the report. So we wanted to open it up for some discussion prior to the vote. And I see Inga's hand.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. I personally did not get a chance to review it because it just came not too long ago. And so I was wondering if there's any way we could, I would love to review it, but I just haven't had the time. Is there any way we can prolong this vote or do an electronic vote? I don't know if I'm the only one. If I'm the only one, then never mind. But
so Inga, I think that can definitely be something that is discussed. We do recognize that it was a short review timeline, and that timeline was communicated to the commission prior. We tried to give as much time for content, for content development and for the work groups to develop that content. So we recognize that would be cut into the review time. But I think we would be open to an e-vote, but that would still need to be a relatively timely vote, since we do have to have both internal review and legislative reports do need to be provided to DBM for review prior to submission. And so we are really working on that timeline to ensure that we submit the report timely. So I do see a couple of hands. I will start with Fred.
I don't really know if it's appropriate, and other people can comment on that, but every time there was language in this report that talked about individuals, families, children, or adults, I always added "and communities." And I stopped doing it because it gets a little obnoxious to keep doing it. But maybe we don't think that's appropriate, but it's the perspective I have, and particularly considering how we looked at changing the SAMHSA principles, I think it should be something that is added, because I do think it is an issue that there is a community perspective we should have in this.
Thank you, Fred. Moving on to Claudia.
So I have a couple things that I wanted to mention. One having to do with, I agree with Inga that there should be more time given to the review of the report. I submitted some additions today, but it's a cursory, and I really think that the recommendations at the end of the report need to be developed a little bit further, and asked for additional potential recommendations. But part of it is process that I wanted to talk about. Christina, you had mentioned, and I think that the additional time that the report needed to go through an internal process and to DBM, and I'm pretty sure that it doesn't need to do that. Because it's an independent commission. The language of the statute was very clear that it's an independent commission. So, I know that the council, the state council is an independent council, and it doesn't, oftentimes, the folks at DHS had thought that it needed to go through that, but after review by the AG, independent commission doesn't have to go through that internal process. So that gives more time for the commission to. Another piece of that, I think, is I know that, we have these work groups of very, filled with expertise of people who are donating their time. And the report was was sent to us as confidential, and requested that we didn't share it with others. I know I am a representative of the state council, so therefore I should be sharing it with the state council and getting input from the state council as a representative. And so I think that's something I didn't want to bring up on Monday when we received it in an email, but I think that's something as the commission we should be discussing as what are, in the legislation, it also says that the commission decides on its operational procedures. And I think that's something that we need to decide. And I really think it should be that we're deciding in a trauma-informed manner, and that we're, using operational procedures that are trauma-informed and transparent to go with the work that we're doing. So those were my comments, initial comments.
Thank you, Claudia. And I think that's definitely something that we can discuss further. I know we have we're planning for the commission planning retreat. So I think those are all appropriate topics to come up in that space. And we can continue that conversation. I do see Christina Bethel. Christina, you're muted.
Hi.
Christina, you remuted yourself. There you go.
Okay. So, I did, and
Christina, sorry to interrupt. You got muted again. I don't know what's happening with your system, but you are unmuting and muting. So, Dr. Beth, I'll give you a moment. Maybe you need to sign out and sign back in. Not quite sure. But while Dr. Beth Christina, when you come back or when you're able to do that, we'll give you space. Okay, so I'm just going to share briefly.
Can you hear me now? You can't hear me now?
No, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. My mute button was not on, so I don't know what happened. I just did it again. So I just put it in the chat too. Mostly I just wanted to say I did review the report, and it's descriptive as it would be, and mostly laid out some work in progress, but I wondered whether or not we were at a place, and it feels like obviously it's about time, right, Claudia? Like I see all these meetings and I'm like, I have so much to share, and I'm like over here in cliffhanging mode trying to get things done. But I do want to say I thought we had more clear goals, an environmental scan that could identify assets and things that could be low-hanging fruit to act on, maybe even a scenario, like a short scenario, a couple paragraphs on, if we were successful or Maryland was successful, here's some things that would actually we could leverage and would be different as a result of our success. I mean, just a little bit more existing levers that we can pull, just a little bit more information about what's trying to be done and why all this work is happening. So I just wanted to see that, and I felt like there was more that we could say there, and I didn't know if that was even appropriate for the report. Maybe it's just supposed to be descriptive, like we're talking and we're working and that's that. But it didn't feel like it left me with anything about what we're trying to actually have happen on the other side of all this, what our current assets and opportunities are to celebrate and support in the short term, and especially that environmental scan, like what is going on across not only the agencies, but even just an early synthesis of that. So again, it may not be appropriate for this, but I wanted to see it because I was hoping that if there's a way this could actually inspire more support, that may be the way to do it, is to show some of that. So it's not a criticism so much as I just wondered if it was on purpose, but we didn't say just more about that.
Thanks, Christina. I think definitely we were trying to capture that this is a work in progress. And then also, again, this commission doesn't have a sunset date. So it's something the commission will continue to work in as the commission makes more firm decisions and has more, products and outcomes developed. We will be sure to.
But to me, to even be at the place we're at, we should already be saying, like, at any given time, what are our goals and what do we share in terms of, some key principles and values or something. And we've talked about that. So I just felt like a commission without it, and it can change and evolve over time, but there's what is the, are we trying to do measurement work so that we can evaluate programs or to support assessment? And just it's felt a little bit more vague than I think we're at. So and at least to capture some of the goals and principles.
Yeah,
I know that I saw we talk about that at retreat. I guess I thought we did talk about that at least enough to be able to, say that we're not just having all these work group meetings; they're actually happening within a context of some goals and desired outcomes. But
yeah, Christine, and to that point, I think the commission is working towards those things. We at the last meeting, it was the intention to have the vote on some of those goals and those principles, but in the conversation, the commission didn't feel that there was enough that there wasn't enough kind of time to talk through all of the aspects that were needed to vote on those things, and so that's where we're moving with the retreat. And unfortunately, the timing for that retreat and that vote hasn't aligned with the report submission deadline. So
that's clarifying. So you only want to put in here what's been voted on.
We only want to put in what is voted on and try to capture what is happening in those conversations. What are some intentions that the commission is looking at, and that more information will come as a result of the vision, the visioning and strategic planning section. But unfortunately, just because of the timing and the submission of the report, we don't have the fully voted on things at this point in time. So we tried our best to kind of capture the what is intended and the spirit of the conversation.
Well, the Baltimore gift economy, I don't know who that is, name your name, but I think I share this, that there's a lot that could be leveraged now to start to get some support and funding for real assets that we could build on. And I think I feel a little anxious about not doing what we can to kind of, get some work going that we know needs to be done while we wait for that. But that's just me feeling some urgency. So we'll stop.
And so I think we're open to, if there is additional suggested language that you think should be included in the report to represent work that that may not be currently represented in the report. We are open to that. I think we wouldn't want to prolong additional content development or an e-vote too much longer, because we do want to make sure that we have the time for the editing. But I think we're open to that. Wanting to open it up again if there are more thoughts regarding the legislative report that is due on June 30th.
Hi, Christine. This is Frank. So two things. One, I would support Fred's urging to add the word community. I think it makes sense. and I think it's research supported too. I would also support whatever additional time that members need to review the report and make suggestions about recommendations. I appreciate and recognize the challenge that you have to make sure that you have enough time then to turn it around. But it sounds like there's a desire for folks to dive into it a little deeper, and particularly around the recommendations. I agree with Claudia. I do think there's some wording there that might expand those out a little bit. So that would be my input.
So I guess just to formalize this process, since we were looking for a vote. Oh wait, I just saw. Can you clarify? Margot said, "Can you clarify who the report has been shared with and who is reviewing?" So the report was shared. The report, I believe, was shared with all commissioners. And Christy, were work group chairs provided that, or was it only commissioners? Christy?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. So was the report shared only to commissioners, or were work group chairs included as well?
Yes, only to the commissioners.
Thank you, Christy. Fred?
I mean, I don't know what the rules are, and Claudia mentioned some things, but I think it has to go to the chairs too, even if they're public. I mean, it just doesn't make sense in our process. Because they'd have a lot to contribute with the time they put in terms of the content matter of each. I don't know, but I don't know if there are rules that we can't do it. It's got me in terms of what has to be done confidential, but it has to go to the chairs as far as I'm concerned, at least.
Yeah, Fred, and I know we did work with the work group chairs for helping to develop content to be included. So it sounds like from the group there, it is a recommendation to extend the review period time in the timeline for folks to submit additional comments and content for the report, and then that would necessitate an e-vote following that. So kind of looking at the calendar and looking at timeline, for folks, what would be a reasonable amount of time for folks to have the additional review? Is it that we would accept additional comments and edits either Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, and then for us to be able to provide a turnaround back to the commission by Friday the 27th for additional review and an e-vote. I'm just trying to gauge some timeline for folks. And I think Inga, I see.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I think that extra time will be very helpful, and I think that timeline works for me if it works, for you.
Great. And I apologize, Delisa, I saw your hand earlier, but you put it down. Is there anything that you wanted to share?
Thank you. I just wanted to agree with Fred about having it go to chairs and the importance of really having the voice of the people who are working in those work groups as a part of the reporting, and also about our process. and how we figure out our process, the idea about, who gets the report, who can we report to. So I think that, the retreat is so important for us to kind of nail down some of how we're moving and how we're going to process things together.
Thank you, Delisa. Margot?
Yeah, I agree with everything Delisa has said and almost everything the members today have said. I just want to encourage us. I know that there's timelines and I know there's things that need to happen. But I also want to make sure it's a trauma-informed commission, that we're living a trauma-informed process, that we're not rushing through, we're not leaving people out, that we're being thoughtful, we're being caring as we walk through the process. It's an opportunity, I think, to live the message and model the message. And so I think it's hard when people aren't fully included or people are rushed through to make decisions. And I think the chairs personally should have a review of the report because they are working hard.
Thank you, Margot. And I think, again, it is not our intention to be, exclusionary. But also, I think for some of us too, administratively, there is the legislative deadline, and we do recognize that all of the work is not done right now, and we try our best to make sure that the commission is still in progress.
Absolutely. I don't think there was ever malintent. That's not what I'm saying. I do think that we are, all of us, right, are functioning in systems that are very, that are not trauma informed. They're not historically trauma informed. And so it's a little bit bucking against the system, and it's an opportunity to be intentionally maybe trying to be different and do the process differently, although there are constraints and parameters. So I think it's more just trying to be thoughtful about how we move through. And part of being trauma informed is we don't close things up neatly, in an hour or a week or a month, right? And so it can be that we turn in a report knowing we're not there and we're not finished, I think, but it's really more about the process, I think.
Thanks, Margot. And I see Kirsten.
I actually think Margot might have covered it. I was just wondering if we can submit the report saying we've brought up these issues, but we're planning to do this retreat to talk about it further. We don't have to say that we voted on this stuff quite yet. I'm not sure if we have to outline that in the report that we submit. I do agree that some of this feels a little rushed, and I know it's to meet deadlines, but I also think that it's not we're not working on these things. I don't know.
Yeah, thanks, Kirsten. I mean, in the report, we did note, and in the meetings, there is a section with meeting summary. So we have highlighted, discussions and discussions around principles, and that we are looking for more clarity and kind of decision making on process and mission and core values at the retreat. We can, as much information that we can include in this year's report, we do, but then also some of that will be representative in the next year's report, and then in the following year's report. We recognize that this is an iterative process, and we don't want to stay stationary, and that the work will continue to move forward. Also, I just saw Jessica's question about work group leads invited to the retreat. Yes, that is our intention, and we are going to talk about the retreat and the planning for the retreat later on in today's meeting. So with all of the conversations that we have had, Claudia?
Are you asking at this moment are we going through the report, or are you asking us for additions to the report now? I'm not quite sure. You just have that on the screen. What?
Yeah, so what I was going to ask for was I was getting ready to ask for a motion for next steps. It sounds like it's the will of the group to have some additional time for review and submission of additional comments. I had provided the suggested timeline that commissioners have until May 25th to submit any additional content, any additional content or edits. And then we would turn around back to the commission by Friday the 27th, what all of those edits and changes are for an e vote. That was just what I was suggesting, but I was looking for a motion from the commission for next steps regarding the report.
Christina, just for clarity, if we followed that timeline, when would be the e-vote?
So, and then I also do recognize that is a holiday weekend as well. I mean, I don't know if folks would feel comfortable you would probably want some additional review time from when we send that amended draft to the actual vote, but I'm resonant to get too deep into June without an e-vote, but I'm open to suggestions. Inga?
I just forgot what I was going to ask because it was a conversation ago, I think. So proceed, sorry.
All right, Inga, and if it comes to you, just ping us. Delisa.
I'm just clarifying, does this include sending the report as it is now for review to the chairs so that they'll also be able to make comments?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I thought of it. What I think you said that we were looking at comments by Monday the 25th, but Monday's the 23rd.
Wednesday the 25th.
Okay, thank you.
So we'd be looking for comments by Wednesday the 25th, and we would include all of those suggested edits and comments, and that would get shared back out to the commission and the work group chairs by Friday the 27th. I think we are just looking at what would be the date for issuing the e-vote. I do also recognize that we have a holiday weekend that is coming up, so we would be looking at the first week of June. I see a couple hands. I saw Delisa.
I'm sorry, I didn't put my hand down from last time. I apologize.
No problem. Claudia?
So I'm going to say this again. I said it at the top of the, so, as this is the commission's report, I think it's more important that we give the commission time to review it and respond and make recommendations. The report's not due until the end of June. So we've given, at this point, the commission 2 days to this point. And now, and we're talking about maybe a week, but to give the commission 2 weeks to finish it, or 3 weeks to finish its process, there's plenty of time to go back and do any internal, although it's not required. And really changes are not, it's the commission's report. The idea behind these reports is that they are, the policymakers can take the recommendations or they can decide not to take the recommendations, but the commission makes its recommendations based on its expertise. And I think that giving the commission, the chairs, people abilities to go back and say, do we have the best here, that we have at this point, it would be really helpful.
Thank you, Claudia. I did see Frank's hand.
So just to continue the discussion on dates, I would move that we immediately release the report to the chairs, that we have until June the 1st for commission review, and that we look for the vote that following Monday. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but we have the vote the following Monday, which I think, if I'm imagining that right in my head, Christina, gives you several days to turn it around. Any recommendations before the vote? If somebody could give me that Monday after June 2nd.
Yes, that is Monday, June 6th.
So I would move that the commission vote to release the report to the chairs, who are members of the public, and we do that immediately, that we have until June 1st to review and send recommendations to you, and that the vote be on June 6th.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
This is Delisa. I second.
All right, thank you. Delisa, is there any discussion?
Yeah, my question around that would be, and maybe it's okay, that after everybody submits the recommendations and you guys put it together into the final report, nobody will have seen each other's comments, recommendations, or changes except for you guys. So we will really not have reviewed the final product when we vote.
So could it be, just as a suggestion, so in the original motion is that commissioners and work group chairs have until June 1st to provide comments. We can, in keeping the 2-day turnaround, share back out with everyone by June 3rd all of the additional comments for additional review, and then we could still maintain, well, then that's a Friday, so that would be pushing our vote. That would push our vote to potentially June 8th. But we would need an amendment to our motion. I see Janice.
Amend my motion to have the vote on June 8th.
A second. Ulysses Archie here.
All right. So with that amendment seconded, is there any additional discussion? And I do see Janice.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry. Mine was not related to the amendment. I was just going to ask if the chairs could share with the full committee, if there was any reason that we could not share with the full committee.
I think we could share with the committee, but I think we just want to make sure that it's within
the time frame.
Folks that are directly connected to the commission. We don't want this spread, since it isn't, since the report isn't finalized and isn't public. We don't want, we want to try and keep it within the purview of the commission. So I think it'd be okay to share with committee membership, but it does not become a public document until it is voted and issued.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I see some hands. Fred.
Just two things. In the spirit of the commission, even once this is finalized, I hope we're clear that this is a process, because then the community might have input that we would like to consider. So I'd like to really be clear that this is a process. We keep acting as if it's a final product. Nowhere close. We're just trying to put ourselves together, even to envision how we're going to do this. So I think it's important, because I think we don't want it to seem as a final, really worded as something then that we can get feedback from people. The second thing, just a silly thing. So if we vote, what does that mean? A simple majority? We haven't said what a vote means. So like say half of what's needed consensus, simple majority. I hope we don't go to 60% like the government, because then we'll get into a filibuster and we'll be in trouble. But if there's that little humor in terms of everything. Okay. So, but we haven't said what a vote means. You know what I mean? Okay. So just for clarification.
Yeah. Can I say something really quick?
So Fred, generally with votes, it is majority with Robert's rules. So that is, but open if there is something, if the commission wants to do something differently, but it is majority based on a quorum. I see Claudia.
I'm wondering if we could change the report, instead of saying confidential, that it say draft on it. That way there's no chance that it gets out to people that would take it as a final product. And it also doesn't, it displays more of a trauma-informed, approach to saying we're asking for input, but this is not a final product.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can make that change and make it draft. And also, to Fred's point, we don't view the report. I mean, the report is a product, but it is a product to document the process and the activities that the commission has undertaken in the last year. So technically a report is a product, but we try to use the report to document the activities and the progress that the commission has made towards meeting the goals outlined by the law. I see Christina Bethel.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to kind of weave a thread here, which was when we talked earlier, it was only things that are voted on would be in the report. But I also think that with Fred and Claudia and everybody's comments here, it is a living process, and that is part of how we do things. And so if we have arrived at something that feels promising or celebratory or clear that we need to support and act sooner to get funding for, those things can, would be, I think, inspiring to share. Otherwise, I think this is just a descriptive report, which won't necessarily engage those reading it to support this work in the way that we really are going to be asking them to. And so I'm just, because it's a living thing, like you said, there's a lot of other things going on probably in the legislature and certainly in agencies around this. So it just wondering if there's a little bit more opening to share in a proper context the living emergent work that's happening, even if it's not at that point of like Robert's Rules of Order. So again, just bringing that close loop with what Fred said. That's all.
Right. Thank you, Christina. And so I think, again, based on the amended motion that is still on the table, that provides additional time for commission members, work group chairs, and work group committee and work group members to provide additional feedback. Is there any other discussion before we take a vote on the motion? All right, hearing or seeing none, I will ask, is there anyone opposed to the motion?
Can you repeat the full motion again, please?
And so Frank, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the motion that is on the table is that the report will be opened up to the work group chairs and the work group members today, and folks will have until June 1st to provide the office with any additional comments or content for inclusion. The office will then compile all of those comments and responses and share back out by Friday, June 3rd, for additional review and comment, and then we will call for an e-vote on June 8th.
That is correct.
Thank you.
So again, is there anyone opposed to the motion before the commission? All right, hearing or seeing none, this motion passes. So again, as a follow-up, you will see, we will include all of this not only in the meeting notes, but in a follow-up email for everyone with all of those reminders for the timeline. So thank you all so much for your discussion today on the legislative report. So moving us along, I am going to turn it over to Christine to discuss the agency report submissions.
So there wasn't a whole lot that I was going to say about this, except that I compiled all of the agency reports exactly as they were written and sent them out to everyone. They were also attached to the report. So was there anyone who had any questions, comments, or thoughts about the agency reports? Did everyone get a chance to see them?
Claudia?
I just wanted to thank the agencies for their reports and for being pretty frank in the reports about, where their agencies were, that it's really important for everybody to understand that some agencies know nothing about this yet. And some agencies have been doing, some amazing work, and it really is helpful to know where we are at this point in the state, and just wanted to thank the agencies for the reports.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Matilda?
Good morning. I just think the reports were really helpful, especially working within the training subgroup to see what the agencies were currently working on, but also to see other agencies who didn't necessarily see how their particular agency's mission or strategic direction aligns with this particular legislation. So just looking forward to providing not only that technical assistance for those folks who may need some more work to see how those particular priorities would align with the current legislation, but also working with folks who are way further along in some of their efforts around training in ACEs.
Thanks, Matilda. And I do see Christina Bethel's about identifying, about kind of synthesizing the reports. We did share the agency reports with all of the, with the work group chairs, so that they can kind of review the content and the information that was provided to help inform the work of the work groups, additional recommendations, next steps. So some of that will happen. Some of that will happen with the work groups, and then also stuff will be elevated to the full commission.
I'm sorry, just with an additional question, just wondering, will the heads of these particular agencies be involved in any of our visioning or strategic meetings as we talk about initial vision and focus for this particular initiative? It would be helpful to hear from departments like the Department of Natural Resources, folks who are saying that they're really not sure how their strategic direction aligns with this particular legislation. It would be helpful to hear those types of things and kind of why they may feel that is, as we kind of look toward what our particular mandate is going to be moving forward around training and the other types of things we need to create to make the state more trauma informed.
Thanks, Matilda. I mean, at a minimum, we do have agencies, represented as members of the commission, and that invite will be provided to them and their designees, I think we can reach out and make the ask for those additional agencies that are included in the law to provide reporting back to the commission, but do not have commissioners. We can make the ask.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think it's really important for us so that we can try to, there's a wide spectrum of knowledge and training going on. So to try to marry folks who are so deep into it, like MDH and MSDE, with folks who haven't even begun to think about this, I think will be useful to try to find a starting point that every department can be on, as well as an ending point.
Right. And Matilda, to that point, it may not be like the head of the agency, but also some agencies did identify points of contact. So it may be that person that the agency has identified to interact and learn with the commission moving forward.
Thank you so much, Christine. I appreciate it.
I do see Claudia.
One of the things that I noticed in reading the agency reports too was even the agencies where there's a lot of work going on, it's in specific offices of that agency or divisions of that agency. And I think that the same thinking goes on that, like I'll use DHS as an example, that's child welfare that needs to be trauma informed, and child welfare has made a significant done significant work in that area, but maybe child support enforcement or the family investment agency aren't necessarily. So that, and people chosen for positions oftentimes are people within that one little division of the agency that works, so that we're mindful and that we recommend to the agencies as they're choosing people to lead their the work, that it is somebody that is able to look at the bigger view of the agency and look at the portions that are more trauma informed or think that they should be trauma informed, and those pieces of the agency that aren't. I know, like BHA, behavioral health, the Department of Health. Behavioral Health Administration has a lot in there, but there's not a lot from public health. And that is, I think, a matter of, the amount of time there was to get the agency reports together. But it's really important that the people that have, that are leading the efforts in their agencies have access to all the divisions of the agencies, and that make sure that the entire agency is, and not just one division that seems to serve families, children and families more. And I think that's really something that we ought to recommend in our report, that agencies start to think in those terms.
Thank you, Claudia. Any other thoughts or questions regarding the agency reports?
Just one last thought. It was interesting how several of the agencies equated a focus on trauma-informed care or trauma-informed perspective with the ability or with the department having the mandate of serving the public. So in other words, it seemed like several agencies, because they didn't really have any direct interface with the public, didn't necessarily see a place or a rationale for delving into the work around trauma-informed care delivery prior to the legislation. So I think that also speaks to a more important and more difficult task for us, not only as a commission, but as a state. How do we create a culture around trauma-informed care to where even if folks aren't providing service to the public or directly interfacing with the public on a daily basis, they see the value and the recognition of transforming their organizations to provide trauma-informed responsiveness, even in policy and procedure. So I think that's going to be a challenge notwithstanding, all of the training that we can provide, how do we get organizations that aren't necessarily interfacing with the public or interfacing with youth to understand the importance of trauma-informed care service delivery and how they need to get there?
Thank you, Matilla. And I just saw in the chat, Aaron asking, can work group members have access to the agency reports as well? Yes, we provided access. We provided the reports to the work group chairs to be shared with their work groups as they are, working on. Oh, wait.
That actually has not happened yet, but it will happen along with some. The plan was to provide them as soon as the report was submitted, but it can happen at the same time as it is provided with the legislative report.
Thank you, Christy. Matilla, is that a new hand or is that from your previous comment?
I'm sorry, it's from the previous comment. I got long nails. It's hard for me to press buttons sometimes. I apologize.
No problem. I understand. All right. So again, we will be sure to share the agency report submissions to the work group chairs and members of the work group and members of the work group as well. Christy, is there anything else you would like to share about the agency reports?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. All right. We can move on. And it's still you to discuss the retreat.
Okay. So in the past, when we've talked about the commission visioning retreat, we had talked about having it be a closed session, but including the work group chairs. There has been some comment around that, and that is for, I guess, the commission to decide. In terms of selecting a date, there were 25 responses to the doodle poll. The dates with the most responses are listed there with the number of people that were able to attend on those particular dates. Comparatively with the number of responses, it's not a good rate. So the thought that we had as staff was perhaps to suggest that we have replaced the next commission meeting with the commission visioning retreat and just extend the time for the meeting from 10 to 11:30 to make it from 9 to 1 or from 10 to 2, however the commissioners would prefer. And again, that meeting can be hybrid so that we will allow for the meeting to take place in our conference room here in our office, as well as make space for virtual participation as well. And then there will be an opportunity for individuals on the commission to be on the planning committee for that event. And there have been a couple of people that have volunteered for that. We just haven't made movement towards that because we haven't selected a date as of yet. So any comments, thoughts, suggestions, anything related to any of that information?
Claudia?
So, I think this goes to us being, living, as Margot had said, like walking the walk. And the piece that this is going to be a closed session really is kind of antithesis to being trauma informed. And on a more technical point, the commission is subject to the Open Meetings Act, and this is not an there's nothing. I've read through the what the exceptions to that are. There's nothing that we're doing at this meeting that would require a closed session, and I don't think we can have a closed session. I mean, I think it's against the open. I mean, I can share the link with everybody about what the exceptions are, but I don't think that's a possibility to have a. I mean, for years I've always had an open retreat for the council and because it doesn't fall into a an exception to the Open Meetings Act.
Thanks, Claudia. We can also follow up with our Open Meetings Act just to confirm. And I think Christina, Bethel, I saw your hand earlier.
Oh, just wanted to say that I am on a plane the 16th in the morning, and I just really, really want to come. So I'm pleading, but I understand that the group, I just would been kind of looking forward to it, and I didn't realize this was one of the options. Anyway, I can't avoid it because I have to get myself across the country. But is this pretty much a set date, like, or are there any other options looking at?
So we weren't firm. We went to use this space to help figure out the date. We offered the June 16th, which is a standing commission meeting, because the current results aren't representative of the majority of the commission members. And so since this was a standing meeting, we were hoping that there would be more availability for commissioners to.
I think I was just one who could probably make all those other times. So whatever you do, fine. I just want to say I would love to be there, but I will be ready to be in the air at that exact time.
So I also see in the comments, Jessica said that this should be in addition to, that the retreat should be in addition to and not replace the commission meeting. Also, there is, folks have commented about the meeting needs to be longer. So I think we are, as staff, we are open and looking for direction from the commission about what would be, what would be your preference and how we can support that, either for date and time.
And I think the issue with scheduling has been there were 13 dates offered, and most of them, there were less than 6 people who were able to come on any particular date. And so the goal is to try and make something happen soon, because that seems to be a priority to the commission, but also to get as many of the commissioners available at the same time. And with a group of very, very busy people, that becomes a challenge as well. So we're open to whatever, but the longer that we make the time frame, the fewer people that will be able to attend. So I'm just trying to make sure that we get the event scheduled.
Yeah, the event times didn't work for me because they were mostly in the evenings. I have small children, so I wouldn't necessarily mind participating over the internet or something like that. But to be honest, I think I'll miss somewhat of the camaraderie with the commission if I'm not in person. So that's kind of my feedback around that. I would love to have a retreat that perhaps is a couple of days long so that we can go ahead and get this done and move on. Weirdly enough, I may be more amenable to that because then I would have to plan childcare for the entire duration of the day as opposed to what I normally do on a daily basis. So,
so when you say evening, the times.
So I think it was like from 3 to 7 or something like that. I have a very small, like for a lot of the dates, they were like 3 or to 7 or a lot of like late afternoon, early evenings. And I just have childcare obligations.
It should have all been either 9 to 1 or 10 to 2.
I saw a lot of 3 to 7:30s. I don't know if it's because I had answered a little bit after the deadline was over, but I specifically remember because I commented to my husband and I said, I don't even know if I would be able to do this because of childcare. So 9 to 1, of course, I can always work that out. I mean, my employer knows I'm participating in these, so those would be much easier.
So Matilda, we apologize that there was some confusion on your end with the doodle poll. Our intention was to, as Christy mentioned, that we provided options in the morning and early afternoon. So we're sorry that there was something that happened with the doodle poll, but what was originally sent were 9 to 1 and 10 to 2 p.m. options. Frank.
Yeah, I appreciate the problem solving that went into selecting a date that we're already meeting. So since the June one doesn't work, what would the commissioners think about looking at the third week in July that we typically meet and making that a full day? Would that give everyone enough time to be able to clear that date? Would that be a possibility?
And just so everyone knows, that would be Thursday, July 21st.
Jessica.
So I made a comment in the chat, and I know it's probably not a popular one, but I really do believe that if we have been nominated as commissioners or are sitting on this commission, we have a due diligence to really come together to meet more often and to make this work move forward. I apologize for being very direct with that, and knowing that, like, that may then mean that we, have to clear schedules that we don't necessarily would like to, but I want to put it out there that we really need to meet more rather than less. And if that means meeting in addition to, the commission, this commission meeting, I think we need to do it. This is really important work. We are building relationships. We're building this foundation, and this is work that really needs to happen.
Inga?
I think the other side there, or the just to elaborate on that, is that I think counties and cities, municipalities are going to be watching this and are going to be looking at our process. So it's really important that we do our due diligence, be mindful of the principles that we're trying to instill in our agencies. And I'm concerned about the end of July because I guess it's not the end, but anyway, because I'll tell you the committees are kind of hamstrung until we get this work done. I mean, there are some things that can be done, but if we're going to elaborate on or enhance the principles or the domains, it's going to affect committee work.
Thank you, Inga. So are there any suggestions? Again, we have what was identified through the doodle poll. Are there any kind of suggested dates? Yes, Christy, sorry.
We could theoretically send out the 5 dates again that are listed on the screen and see if people could look at their schedules again and see if any of those dates who have the most attendance could be made available, if those were the only dates that could be chosen from, and see which dates are most suitable for the group.
I would lean towards that, but I do see Fred's hand. Fred?
I would just, if you do that, I think we need to look at a longer day. Look at what it takes us to do something in an hour and a half. It really has to be like a 9 to 5 or 9 to 4 thing. I'm sorry, we'll just never get through it. We're all, it's like herding cats. I love my cats, it's not a problem, but it's just the way we work, and it takes time to do that, no matter what. So, and the other thing we'll have to come to terms with is it's like what we just said for the majority vote kind of thing. We're not going to get everybody. So what's a quorum? We'll have to decide that, because there's no way we're going to get everybody. And so there's a reality here for all of us, and I don't want to exclude anybody. That's not my point. I've never done anything where everything's going to fit for everybody on the same way. So I think you can send this out here, but I would expand the time. I really don't think we can work things through without that. those are my thoughts. And I'm lucky because I'm retired. You folks got other things going on, so it's easy for me to say.
The other thought for shortening the time, honestly, was we do not have a budget. So there's no ability for us to provide food. There's no ability for us to provide those kind of things. We don't have a budget. We can reserve the room, but that is what we as staff are able to provide is space and technology. Beyond that, that was part of the limit of the day. I do not have a problem expanding it from 9 to 5, but people will need to plan on bringing food of their own for the day because we do not have the capability to provide that.
And I'm going to turn to Delisa for just one moment. Fred, to your point, kind of traditionally with a quorum, it's 50% plus one. And so I believe we have 29 commissioners. So with only having 14, we are shy of that quorum. So Delisa.
I was thinking, and now hearing what. So my thought was to take the first date and see if we could do it the whole day, but that's only 13 people. I agree. I think with what Inga said, that the longer we wait, we're pushing it back and pushing it back, and the further into the summer you get, people are out of town. Folks will already have vacations scheduled, and so I think the longer we wait, the less likely we have to the date. Waiting another till July, the end of July, that's really a long time. So, since we're all here now and we need to do this to move forward, is there a way that we can just throw out some dates and try to get 50% plus one and just move on with it?
Thank you, Delisa. So from what I heard, I believe you were suggesting June 9th, since it is the Delisa just left. But I think what Delisa said was either recommending June 9th since it is the earliest date, or if here in this space right now, or quickly following this meeting that we identify a date. Frank.
Yeah, just it seems to me that we have a conflict between wanting to move quickly and the inclusiveness that we've also talked about. Because it seems to me that if we move too quickly in June, then we're already, it looks like it's clear that less than half of us can make it in June. I don't know if re-looking at it again changes any of that. I can speak for myself. The times that I couldn't make were because I physically wasn't going to be in the state, and each of us have different work. Mine is contractual. I can't cancel a contract with a client in California. It's not any, non-prioritization of the importance of the commission of the work. It's just practical reality. So I'm struggling with what sounds like, on the one hand, lots of comments about being inclusive, getting as many people as possible, and on the other hand, feeling like if we don't do something in the next couple of weeks, that's problematic. And my recommendation of July is because I fall on the side of inclusiveness. I think if it's clear that the dates already proposed don't work, then while we'd like to move faster, that's just our reality. But I think the gathering for a full day together will be tremendous and terrific and beneficial. And if that means we have to wait a couple of more weeks to do that, that's why I proposed the July date, just for that clarification.
I agree with Frank. I think it's so important that at least all of the commission members are seated at these meetings. It would not make sense to have a visioning meeting without all the commissioners present. And I don't think you could do it without doing it for a full day, because as you can see, it's so difficult for us to all get together. So I think when we are together, we need to be able to work as much as possible for as long as we possibly can.
So again, we do have 4 for consideration then, we do have offered what would be the July meeting date, which would be July 21st, or there are again some dates that are listed but do not have a majority of the commission membership. So we're open to another date, either July 21st or an additional date. Frank.
Sorry, that was from last time.
Oh. So Jessica, that's what I was just going to think, to put out another doodle poll to see if either the 21st, which would be creating a whole day on our usual commission meeting, or an additional day of the 28th. We can send that out following. We would ask for folks to respond as quickly as possible with your schedule, so that we can get this date and get all of the planning that needs to happen moving forward. So we can follow up from this meeting with the doodle poll for either July 21st or the 28th. And then also too, if folks are interested in serving on the planning committee, this is exactly to Ulysses' point about facilitating the meeting. We would ask for support from commissioners in the planning meeting about developing the agenda and moving us forward throughout the day. So again, if there have already been some commissioners who have expressed interest in joining that planning committee. This is a continued call that if you are interested in doing that, please reach out to Christy, and there will be some additional next steps with that smaller group of commissioners for planning for that day. Claudia.
Once we get the date, you might reach out to the Mediation and Conflict Resolution Office of the state of Maryland. They've got great facilitators and they may be able to do it for free. And that would take care of not having money, but could be a possibility.
So Claudia, if you have a contact for that group, if you could send that to Christy so that she could reach out as needed. All right, so again, we will follow up with the doodle poll for those dates. If you have any other additional questions or would like to participate in the small planning committee meeting, or if you have contacts with any additional resources that may help in the facilitation of this day, again, please share that information with Christy, and more action items will come as a result. Inga.
And you did say that we would be having a hybrid meeting.
Yes. Janice.
Is the planning committee limited to commission members?
No.
So anybody on this call today can volunteer to help plan?
Yeah, if you are a commissioner, if you're a work group chair or part of one of the work groups, yes, we would encourage that support.
Thank you.
So I am mindful of time, that we only have 8 minutes, and I don't think, and we're not going to have enough time to go through all of the work group updates and reports. So what I would ask is for our work group chairs, if you could just send Christine just what your update would have been in writing to her, and we can make sure that gets shared out to everyone in the meeting notes. just so that we can still continue to share that information, even though we don't have kind of time in this space today. So some next steps. Our next commission meeting is on June 16th. Work groups are continuing to meet in the interim. Also, again, we would ask, in addition to those work group reports about that we're going to be provided for this meeting, if you can continue to send work group updates for inclusion in the commission meeting materials. We recognize that having a short oral presentation is just an overview, and we really want to be able to capture and share the work that's happening with the work groups to the commission. So it was recommended that longer kind of reports or updates with more detailed information be provided. So work group chairs, if you can please send those those work group updates and reports to Christine by June 9th, so that we can include those in the meeting materials for the June meeting. Again, there will be lots of follow-up around the doodle poll for the retreat time. Also, we will again share out the voted upon amended timeline for content and edits to the legislative report and the e-vote. Also, something. Oh, go ahead, Christine. Oh, I'm sorry, Christine. I thought you had something to share. Also, something that we also wanted to share with the commission is that we have been making lots of connections with folks at the Department of Health, and some may be familiar with Dr. Yo's work around doing exactly what the commission is working to do here in Maryland. He has worked with other communities and has developed some tools and assessments, and we are excited to bring Dr. Yo to a future meeting to share that work that he has done, and how that can be a resource for the work that is happening in Maryland. So we're excited that Dr. Yo will have an opportunity to present to the commission at a future meeting. I think we're just determining which one it'll be. Christy, we're still working on whether it'll be the June or July meeting?
We had decided on June. If we weren't going to do the retreat on that date, and since we have decided no, then Dr. Yo had agreed to do the presentation in June. And I think it would be good to do the presentation before we have the retreat. So that would be perfect.
All right. Thank you so much for clarifying that, Christy. So again, if anyone has questions or information to share, please reach out to Christine directly, and she'll be happy to forward information, answer any additional questions that you all might have. So thank you all so much for your time. As always, thank you for your candor, as they say in the Hunger Games. And I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day and are able to enjoy some sunshine today. It's supposed to be a good day, so I hope everyone has an opportunity to get outside and enjoy some sun, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Christina.